Well, this really sucks. I did a big tack out to sea to get upwind, and the wind shut off. And now I'm sat at the back. I've got a long way to go to swim home.
The Outer Hebrides was incredible, but it was time to head back to the mainland for the next part of our adventure, the North Coast 500. We got the ferry from Stornoway to Ullapool and we saw loads of dolphins on the crossing. The North Coast 500 is one of the most beautiful, iconic road trips in the world. The 500-mile trip around the north coast of Scotland has some seriously epic scenery, featuring endless, stunning beaches, rugged mountains and loads of very impressive castles, not to mention a wealth of potential kite spots and amazing waves. We had 2 weeks to complete the North Coast 500, which is plenty of time to do so we didn't need to rush. We decided to follow the recommendations of going anti-clockwise around the route, as apparently west is best, so we thought we'd save that until last. I had received a message from my good mate Tom Court, who just arrived in Thurso for a last-minute strike mission, so I was keen to catch up with him for a session. My wife and I decided to make the most of her maternity leave and rent a motorhome to road trip around Scotland and the Outer Hebrides with our 6-month-old baby and 2 dogs. The plan was to hike, kite, wing and circumnavigate islands whilst exploring Scotland's epic scenery.
Today we are checking out the Wallagoo Steps. They were built 250 years ago. And how many steps are there? Like 300? Over 300 very steep steps, going down to apparently a very cool secluded harbour. Got Lyra on my back, just taking it very easy. GoPro doesn't do it justice how steep these steps are. So we made it down to this very epic little cove, and you probably can't see them, but there's a couple of seals down there just chilling, watching us. Really cool. But there's more out there.
We drove up the northeast coast exploring the sights. One of my favourite stops was Dunrobin Castle. Its origins lie in the Middle Ages, with parts of the castle dating back to 1401. But most of the castle you see today was built around 1835. Owned by the Duke of Sutherland, it has 189 rooms and is the biggest castle in Scotland. We paid to do the tour around the castle and watched a very cool falconry display. We stopped off at John O'Groats for the iconic photo and checked out Duncansbury Lighthouse and some impressive rock stacks. The tidal streams beyond the lighthouse fascinated me, as I would love to foil in these waters. The tide flowing through Pentland Firth earned its title as Hell's Mouth, as water ebbs and flows to and from the Atlantic into the North Sea, creating huge standing waves, eddies, races and overfalls. The tide has been measured to run as fast as 12 knots. Today was a calm day, but you could still see some big standing waves in the distance. We checked out Dunnet Head, the most northerly point in Britain, before arriving at the world famous surf town Thurso.
Yeah boy! Made it to Thurso, bumped into Tommy Boy, and we're going for a session. Not much wind, so the wind's a bit dodgy right now. It's sort of cross offshore, 15 knots. Tom only brought a 9 meter because it was really windy the last few days, and he's got just enough power. Maybe I've got a 5.5 wing, so we'll see who's got the best power and what was the best shout for today. Whew. Wow, well that was one of the toughest breaks I've ever got out on a wing. I snapped my leash trying to get out and I'm still not safe. It's not quite windy enough. I got up once or twice in the gust, but And I'm scared to come on the inside because if I lose my board with no leash, then that's the end of the session basically. But there's a little bit of wind and a big wave, I've got to go. Well, this really sucks. I did a big tack out to sea to get upwind and the wind shut off, and now I'm sat at the back. I've got a long way to go to swim home. Woo! Just got back to the beach after my wing mare. I was probably a kilometre out to sea and the wind just shut off. And I'm not joking, I think it took me an hour to get back to the beach. And now I'm like a kilometre down the beach and I've got a massive slog of a walk upwind. I had a few fun waves, but I snapped my leash on the way out and it just wasn't that windy. It was like a big close-out beach break and I was so scared of getting caught on the inside. Sure enough, I got stuck on the outside. But I made it back to land. Time to walk back for a cup of tea. Yeah. So I finally made it back. Tom came to grab my board. I'm absolutely knackered. I reckon it took me a good hour to get back. So I reckon kiting actually wins today, mate, just purely because you would never get as completely screwed as I did. You know, kiting, even if you get super underpowered, you can still get back to the beach.
For a moment it looked like you were having more fun than me though. I think you were having more fun than me.
For a split second I had a few waves. That was really cool, but still, because it was like a big close-out beach break, didn't feel like I could like send it down the line, you know?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get stuck in the inside because there was such little wind. I was on a 5.5 and only a 50 litre board. Maybe the 70 would have slightly got me out of the water, but, or a bigger wing, I don't know. But then when you're on the wave, you want to be on the small setup, but when you can't even get up and it takes you an hour to save yourself, it teaches you something you learn about yourself out there, because all your muscles are like cramping, like the worst lactic acid build-up, because you're just balancing, trying not to miss any opportunity to get up in any gust. But I made it back and lived to tell the tale. Oh, I'm ready for a cup of tea now though. Really doesn't get much better than that. Look at that beach. Not a soul in sight. Turquoise water. Who needs the Caribbean, eh?